Hi, and welcome to another edition of the PodKaz. Todd, Milewski, and Nicole Haase here with you with special guest Ripley. As requested by popular demand, Ripley is making another appearance on this week's show. Nicole, do you want to introduce Ripley a little bit for those of us, or for those of our listeners,
Sure, I'm sure
viewers who
you
don't
will be
know?
able to hear him throughout. I have a basset hound. His name's Ripley. He on Mondays I am home alone and he is right here in my lap. So he will be part of the recording whether we like it or not. So apologies for the dog noises, but it's better than giving him free rein because I think he'll be even louder if we do that. So he does not know he's
Could
not
be a problem too. Yeah. Okay,
so
we've got fair. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got Olympics getting towards the quarterfinal round and the end of the pool play. We've got the end of a regular season coming up in ECAC hockey. We've got number 2 playing number 3 this week, but let's rewind a little bit to last week with number 1 playing number 2, that being number 1 Wisconsin, number 2 Ohio State in their second series of the season, this one in Madison. Ohio State jumped right out and really looked very good from the beginning of the Saturday afternoon contest. Ended up with a 4-1 win in that one. Haley McLeod in goal looked really solid, 30 saves. Jordan Petrie with a goal and 2 assists. A strong start for Ohio State, but Wisconsin, as they have done for the last couple of seasons, bounces back after losing or tying. They get a 4-1 win on Sunday in a game that was a lot closer than that. A couple of power play goals near the end for the Badgers. Lacey Eden put the team on her back, really, for Wisconsin, a goal and 2 assists. Raya Stewart, the freshman, makes 20 saves there. So it's a split of that series in Madison, which leaves everything right where it was. Wisconsin's number 1, Ohio State's number 2 in both the rankings and the NPI, and Wisconsin leads Ohio State by 2 points going into the last 2 weekends of the WCHA regular season. So I'm curious, Nicole, what you learned maybe about these 2 teams from the weekend, if anything. I mean, we've seen them a lot against each other, so there isn't a lot new, but there were a lot of people in new positions this
I
weekend.
mean, after Friday, I thought, wow, I'm not sure, and I had all kinds of notes and was prepared. And then functionally, we had a split, and it was 4-1 both directions. It was like, well, that was a lot of work to end up in the same spot. Um, but I mean, I said last week I thought Ohio State has handled the transition, missing their Olympians better. I mean, that felt like maybe 10 minutes of their first game against Minnesota Duluth did they falter a little, or not even falter, just need to, had that shaky needing to figure out where everything fits. And I thought that was really obvious coming out on Friday against Wisconsin. They put a lot of pressure on the Badgers, and I thought the Badgers' sort of youth and experience was really put on display and tested and maybe exploited a little. The way that Ohio State takes away time and space, they did that. They do that always. That's sort of part of what they do. But I felt like what happened is maybe the players that are used to being on the second and third line don't get it quite that much, and so Wisconsin was making just bad
Right.
plays with the puck, right? Just kind of throwing the puck around. They were not called cool and collected in any way, shape, or form, but you could just kind of see them miss like KK Harvey at the point to kind of, sort of slow things down and reset and look for new lanes and things like that. So yeah, I felt like Ohio State looked great on Friday. I mean, it's not like they looked bad on Saturday. I just think Wisconsin came back out and sort of reset themselves and looked a little stronger. They also, like you said, Lacey Eden, I mean, it kind of felt like she was trying to win it herself on Friday as well. And then she kind of effectively tried to do that and was more successful on Saturday. I think it was about momentum for both, right? Like Ohio State scored first on Saturday and just really had that confidence and push. And then Wisconsin scored first on Saturday, and it felt like, or on Sunday, I'm sorry, it was Saturday, Sunday. I'm probably saying Friday, Saturday. Saturday, Sunday. So in the second game, I felt like
We got you through the whole thing, right?
scoring that first goal just really kind of like settled the Badgers and helped them sort of figure out where they needed to be. But I overall, I think I've been impressed with Wisconsin's response whenever things have not gone well. All, like as you said, their ties or their losses, they've come back and really established themselves in that second game of the series. So Yeah, I don't know. What stood out to you?
Was, I guess, surprised a little bit that Wisconsin maybe was surprised or caught off guard at the start of Saturday afternoon's game because, like we said, they've played so many big stakes games against each other in the last few seasons that even if the high end players are gone from both teams, there should be a pretty good knowledge of what these games mean. And it was just Ohio State that executed better in really the entirety of the first game of the series. And that was, I think, a credit to their albeit limited depth. I mean, these were two teams playing that on the line chart had 9 forwards, and Ohio State had 5D, Wisconsin had 6, but really Wisconsin was kind of rotating through 5 on the D. But it looked like a lot of the Ohio State players looked pretty comfortable. The ones that maybe are seeing more ice time, they seemed like they were just like playing another game. It was just they're out there. They were forcing the game to be played the style they wanted to. They were aggressive, and that got them the results because we've seen before where Wisconsin, and it's been against Ohio State, where Wisconsin doesn't necessarily respond well always to teams that are right in their face. And have a strong forecheck and don't allow for easy exits from the defensive zone. Obviously, like you're saying, KK Harvey changes a lot of that dynamic because she's kind of able to do a lot of that herself. But it does change it when you're asking players who maybe aren't as comfortable in that to do more than they've usually done. And so I think we saw that develop in the second game, where Wisconsin started to understand that it needs to make simpler plays to get out of the zone, not try and stick handle their way into what essentially was 2 players along the wall. And then things did open up for them a little bit. But like I said before, it was a 2-1 game late, and it felt like it was really on a nice edge there before Wisconsin got a power play 5-on-3. Scored on the 5-on-3, then like 20 some seconds later, scored on the 5-on-4 to make it 4-1, and that felt like it just kind of put things away for the Badgers in the second game. But I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, this is not the last time we're seeing these two teams play this season. It could be in the WCHA championship game, it could be in an NCAA championship game. We'll wait and see how that shakes out. But I just get that feeling that we talked about how the MPI flipped after Saturday's game to Ohio State in the lead and flipped back. One more game between these two, if it's for the WCHA championship, might flip 1 and 2 or solidify Wisconsin as 1. We'll see when we get there, but there's going to be a lot on the line whenever that next game does take place.
Yeah, and 2 things I want to point out. One, I would say that Ohio State functionally played, and like this is what Ohio State does. Like what the key was on Friday is their sort of less experienced or second, third line players played the game that Ohio State wanted to play. Like they were more effective at continuing to be the team they've always been, if that makes sense. And I thought that was sort of like that big difference, whereas I think there was just so much more adjustment needed for Wisconsin. And I felt like maybe expose some players as like maybe not as able to handle some of the finesse. And also, like you said, just like understanding that you can't just skate through people. It was a learning opportunity. The other thing I'd like to shout out, I think probably for both teams, but particularly for Ohio State, is they've been skating down a number of players for like weeks, even before their Olympians left. So the fitness on that, which is something that they have, both teams have really well, but like at no point did you feel that Ohio State was playing with essentially half a roster. They're playing with like less than 18, less than 18. It doesn't matter. The point is they're running 3 lines. You're not noticing any difference. Yeah. They came back with just as much on the second day. There was no, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know that they were, short shifting and putting in a lot more time than they normally do. And I think that's a credit to them and the work that they put in to start the year, that they were able to handle that. I mean, I didn't think it was significantly different for Wisconsin, but when you play that forecheck, when you are constantly putting that pressure on, like they are putting miles on that ice, and there was no it was just clear that Ohio State was prepared to do that.
Okay, let's move on to ECAC, where it's the beautiful mess that it has been all season in the standings as we enter the last weekend. Princeton is holding on to a 2-point lead over Yale, which is holding on to a 2-point lead over Quinnipiac, which is holding on to a 2-point lead over Brown, which is tied with Clarkson, who are both half a point ahead of Cornell. So that is 6 teams, the top half of ECAC hockey, separated by 6.5 points going into the last 2 games of the season. So now it's Cornell is out of the race for first. They don't have enough points to make up. But I mean, 5 teams. Theoretically, I guess I shouldn't say that because I haven't done the who plays who.
They play each other.
Permutations of who could make up 6 points. It's so there's some movement that can't quite happen there because of just the number of points that are involved, or the games involving those points. So, but we'll get into that, the schedule of it, when we wrap things up in our third segment tonight. But Yale beat Clarkson 5-4 on Friday. Had to hold on to that one. And speaking of holding on, they were up 5-1 after 2. Clarkson claws its way back with 3 goals in the third, but Samson Fry makes 24 saves for Yale to give the Bulldogs that win there. Quinnipiac only got a tie against Harvard, 1-1 on Friday. Harvard won the shootout, so Quinnipiac only comes away with a point there. No surprise here, it's Ainsley Tuffy making 30 saves for Harvard and +3 in the shootout. We need scoring goal. These are the names we've come to expect here in the second half of the season for the Crimson. And then to kind of confuse things a little bit more, Harvard then goes out and beats Princeton 3-2 on Saturday. Lucia, I forget how to pronounce that. 4:09 left. She scores the go-ahead goal. Ainsley Tuffy, 38 saves. 959 save percentage this season.
It's like 500, right? Like
pretty incredible there. Yeah, and she's really only taken the starting role in the second half of the season for most of the games anyway. So incredible stuff going on there. But I mean, there's no more surprises here. Every week we go into this and we kind of see that there's someone going up and there's someone going down. Clarkson right now has lost 3 straight after winning 6 straight before that. So this is the way it has been all season. No one should be surprised that it's going into the last weekend with so much to play for.
I think maybe the surprise for me is Brown being in that top 6. And I wouldn't even say surprise. They've played well. It has not been necessarily consistent, much like the rest of the league. So yeah, I agree. I went and looked at standings this morning and was like, wait a second. That is not a team we had been, like, when we're talking about all this jumping and moving around, it's not a team we had play into it, but they had a great weekend as well. And so yeah, it's all up for grabs. It's going to be a lot of fun. Love that. Even it doesn't matter who ends up in those top 6 teams, because I don't think anybody is safe in their tournament. Team Chaos is going to have a ride through the ECAC tournament. So it's honestly, it makes for great hockey. It makes things so entertaining. Sometimes it's frustrating. I think some of these teams are better than some of these results that they're getting. But if you are a team that's going to, make a run at a title, make a run at the Frozen Four, you have to win the games that are put in front of you, and there are no opportunities for bobbles, so it's separating, those teams out and showing sort of who has what it takes at this point in the season. Like, you have to be starting to peak in the next week or two, and not be over that before we reach mid-March. So yeah, I have no idea. Right. I mean, we've said it all year. Like, I don't have any idea who to predict for who is going to take this title. So that's fun, but also just like crazy that at some point, like, a team like Brown could come in and make waves in the first, second, or third spot here when they weren't in the conversation to do that at least 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, Jada Ginla figured in all 4 goals Brown scored in the Saturday 4-1 win over Clarkson.
Her senior day, good for her. Yeah,
2 goals, 2 assists, and that's awesome. Yeah, so Brown and Clarkson tied for 4th at 38 points, and that's the cutoff, of course, for the first round bye, the way ECAC does it. Top 4 get a bye, and then 5 through 8 host 9 through 12 in the first round. Then the winners play the 4 teams that got byes in the next round. So there's a lot going on there, and yeah, it's a lot of excitement for the last weekend of the regular season, and that's I feel like that's just the start of it, because yeah, when we get the playoffs in the ACAC, it's just gonna be, throw everything out, let them go, and I don't know if the seeding is gonna matter a whole lot there. I do want to get into a couple of games from Hockey East that are may not matter for the conference championship. That's, Northeastern's got that
Actually,
pretty much
they
wrapped up,
secured
if
it this
not
last weekend.
mathematically. I
Yeah.
haven't even looked yet. I think they may have, yes. But Holy Cross lost a pair of games last week. Boston College won in overtime 4-3 on Friday, and New Hampshire then won 3-2 on Saturday. BC was down 3-1 in the third of that Friday game before making a comeback and then winning in overtime. And then Holy Cross losing again on Saturday makes them winless in their last 4, 3 straight losses. Not the kind of road to the finish line of the regular season they're looking for. It's all going to have to happen in the playoffs for the Crusaders. We know that, but this is not the road I'm sure they wanted to have.
Yeah, it feels like a tripping your way to the finish line, right? They've had such a great season and really sort of shown what they're capable of. And I don't know if this is an inexperienced thing. It is a long season, and if you're not used to playing games that matter when it comes to February, like maybe there's just a haven't been there before bit about it, and it is a long season, and it is exhausting, and if you have to have that in mind in September, right? In terms of like the long game and how you prepare and how you reserve energy and the ability to be really at your best at this time of the season. And that's a team that hasn't had to think about that. And I wonder if that's what's coming into play here, because they have had so many really good wins, and it was a little surprising to see the outcomes the last 2 weekends from them.
So in Hockey East last week, the 2 higher ranked teams had to work overtime for some wins. On Friday, UConn needed OT to beat Providence 2-1, and then on Saturday, Northeastern beat Vermont 3-2 in the extra session after Vermont tied that one late. I love the fact that teams that maybe haven't had great seasons are still pushing the higher ranked teams as we get towards the the middle of February here, where things are really going to start to matter. It leads to that you don't know for sure what's going to happen in the playoffs, because when you get into the one game rounds like Hockey East has all the way through, then it really does any game can tip in a last couple of minutes, and you're going to overtime, and then one shot wins it. So I think there's a lot to be interested in when we look at the playoffs there. We got a couple weeks left still, but should be fun to watch the Hockey East down
I
the
feel
stretch
that
and into the
conference too
playoffs
has been like particularly good. Every time I go and do recaps, there's always goals in the final minute of a period. Like they're high on the drama. And I think, the momentum and the confidence and sort of those intangibles are going to be really important for all the teams, both the ones that are ahead or the higher ranked ones to keep their momentum going. But also, for someone like Vermont who took Northeastern to overtime and had come back and things like that, that's the sort of stuff that they can build on and can really sort of like power them through an upset in the tournament, So I think that's the stuff that's going to really come into play when we come into the Hockey East tournament. Like you said, when it's one and done and there's a million variables, it's not as simple as like how you protect the puck or how you shoot it. So I think it's going to be super interesting as well.
Before we get to our first break, just want to mention things are increasingly interesting in NEWHA, which has Saint Anselm leading at 49 points with Franklin Pierce one back at 48, but Assumption now in the picture there, 4 points back of Saint Anselm at 45 points. This all coming about because Assumption got 6 points against St. Michael's. Franklin Pierce got 5 against Stonehill in a home-and-home series, but St. Anselm lost twice in overtime at Long Island to only get 2 points. So the machine keeps working there of turning out the interest in how this is going to finish up and who's going to get the home, the home ice there to
Yes,
lead
and if I
to the
remember correctly,
playoffs.
St.
So,
Anselm plays both Franklin Pierce
exciting
and
moment.
Assumption their final 2 weekends. Yeah.
Correct.
So the drum has only started.
Oh, yeah, a lot to play for there. Right, exactly. There's a race for third place really in Atlantic hockey. It's, the first place is Penn State wrapped up. Second place is going to be Mercyhurst, but then it's RIT a point ahead of Syracuse, which is a point ahead of Lindenwood. So a lot to be playing for there as well. Okay, there's a lot playing out in Milan right now, and this can be exciting to watch over the next few days. We are going to get into the upcoming US-Canada game and what we've seen so far when we come back on the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Todd and Nicole here to talk about the Olympics tournament, which started last Thursday for, most of the teams. Finland, with a norovirus outbreak, had to be quarantined for a little while, and their game against Canada suffered there and is now being played this Thursday. So extending the preliminary round by a couple of days, so we won't know for sure what the order of things will be until then in Group A. But we do have a big game Tuesday early afternoon U.S. time, with the U.S. and Canada getting their round robin game going after both have gone through their opening games with undefeated records. Has anything stood out to you about either of these North American teams, Nicole, in terms of maybe anything different than you expected going in, knowing the rosters and knowing how, competition has shaped up
I
for
think
them?
the U.S. power play is still struggling a little. I think it can click, particularly apparently if Alex Carpenter is doing things. But I think there are things that you can see there that the threads of it, but it hasn't come together, and I feel like it needs to for them going forward in the tournament. Milewski's doing a little more line changing than maybe I thought that he would. I think I'm not sure. I maybe I'm being nitpicky, but it seems weird to me to put Megan Keller and Layla Edwards together and then KK Harvey and Haley Wynn together. To me, that's sort of doing like, if that makes sense. I mean, not exactly, but you're sort of talking two big, long reaches in Keller and Layla, and I think for them, they're looking for sort of goals from distance. And then with KK and Haley, you've got sort of more active, can maybe sneak up into the offense a little more. So it feels like it would make sense to sort of mix those two pairs. So that might be interesting moving forward. I feel like Layla's played really well. She hasn't had some of the hesitancy and some of the nonchalance that maybe we've seen at times. She looks more secure in making the right decisions. And as opposed to sort of, I feel like she's just not been very offensive because she's been defaulting to do well on defense. And I do get that, but they need her to be offensive. Yeah. She's got a couple of assists now, and I feel like she just looks more confident and secure in the role.
He's getting a lot of minutes too. We expected that for KK Harvey because I think USC's what we've all seen in her, that just can control a game when she has the puck, and sometimes even when she doesn't. But I think Layla Edwards had the most minutes in the game on Monday against Switzerland for the U.S. If I'm remembering that right, a 5-0 win for the U.S. And so I still go back to a year and some change ago, talking to John Milewski about, how much the change to defense was going to require out of Layla Edwards. and how much they were committed to it, because it still felt at that point, this is, back in, maybe it was late 2024, we're talking about it. And it's like, really? I mean, it's one of the best forwards in college, and you're throwing, because that's where she best fits in that picture. It was still a question at that point. He said, look, we don't know where it's going to go, and we're willing to change it up until the last minute, but we need to see this through, because we see that she has potential there, and it has some commitment to it too, as well.
It's so funny, because I had felt like this wasn't going to change. Everybody has complained about the Layla as a defense experiment, and been like, oh, put her back up front. And like, I don't know about the timing compared to what you're saying, but I have long felt like that is such a pointless, like, this is not changing. He is committed to this, and this is what's happening. So it's very funny. Like, I both am still, I mean, I think you and I have talked about this. I feel like there are a number of forwards that I would place Layla ahead of in terms of if we were just ranking. And so it feels very weird to me to have pulled her out of that. And also there may be a couple other players that I would have moved to defense instead. It was interesting on the broadcast today. AJ Milewski said, Layla is the one that asked to move to defense. And I was like, it's not the story we've heard before, but now you never know. Right. But yeah,
it's part of a story. Yeah. I don't know if that's the full version, but that was how it was.
But just interesting that he said to you that it was sort of movable, because it has felt that like he sort of dug his heel, like, this is the decision we made, and like, she's not going back to forward. So and I felt like it has felt like so her options for be a defender or don't be on the team. And so as we can imagine, the decision we would all make. But yeah, I wonder if the minute thing was, in terms of Group A, this is quote unquote supposed to be the easiest game, right? Like, Switzerland is the 15 in the group, and so just trying to continue to put her in a position where she can be comfortable. And I know one of his big things is about being sort of predictable for everybody else on the team. So like, they know what you're gonna do, and you know what they're gonna do, and so giving her more minutes just like ensures that she is doing the thing she's supposed to do, like, without thinking twice about them. But yeah, just overall, I thought she has looked good. I thought the collegians overall have looked really good. There was a power play unit in the second game that was all collegians plus Taylor Haase, which I thought was like, I don't think for him there is any thought to sort of youth or who is a pro or who is a collegian. That's a fluid thing. And I think every one of the collegians is like well trusted to do well in their position, which is cool to see.
I thought the Abby Murphy Taylor Haase connection has been really good in some stretches, where they just find a way and are able to hit each other with passes really well that don't look like they're necessarily open, but they find each other. And that's been good to see for the U.S. I mean, obviously Hillary Knight's doing what Hillary Knight does. We've now seen all three goalies play. Ava McNaughton got a minute and a half at the end of Monday's game. And that's probably what you'll get for the tournament. That you're going to get to Gwyneth Phillips, Erin Frankel, one of the two of them being the go-to goalie for the U.S. But
I thought it was good that they even got the dress. So the fact that they put her in
Tuesday
at all,
against Canada,
it's important. And I think it sort of proves that they see her as the future, and you want to have her have this experience so that when she is someone you're counting on, say in 4 years, that it's not all brand new, but still, like you said, usually the third goalie doesn't even get in. So I thought it was both interesting that they even dressed her as the backup and then put her in. So exciting moment for her. I think it was just cool. And she immediately made a big save, and everybody was cheering. So that was nice. Also, right before she went out, Gwen Phillips was, kind of got hit, and she was rotating her hand on the bench. So we can hope that is a low-key thing, and it's just something she recovers from, but definitely something to keep an eye out for. And then also, I think we should mention Marie Philippe Poulin got hit, took a hit from Kaltenkova in the game against Czechia. She initially went off, came back on, and then went off again, and then did not come back out after, I think, the second intermission. So yeah, we don't have an update beyond that, but she was favoring on, I believe, her right leg. She sort of got twisted around. What looked like head contact that did not get reviewed for head contact, and Kelty had 2 of those in that game. But yeah, that's a big asterisk and something Canada will be looking out for. It wouldn't surprise me if if anything's going on, if she sits for the game tomorrow, because ultimately it doesn't really matter. So if there's sort of any concern or need for recovery, I would imagine they will hold her until, especially because of that late game they're now going to have, and possibly back-to-back going into the quarterfinals.
Right. That does change things. So that game against Finland that was postponed has been rescheduled for Thursday, and then the quarterfinals are Friday, with semifinals Monday and the medal games week from Thursday. So yeah, that timing is challenging, could be challenging for both Canada and Finland. As an aside, what has Finland done to violate the rules of karma in women's hockey in the last couple of months, where the U18 team gets relegated kind of out of nowhere, and now they get hit with norovirus when they get to Milan, or I don't know if it was when they got to Milan, but early in their stay in Milan, and it's just like, wow,
somehow Switzerland got away with one player quarantining
who did they,
for like 2 days.
speak ill of?
Finland was like literally everybody. Yeah.
So rough go of it there for Finland in the last couple months on the women's hockey side. So the game Tuesday decides who wins Pool A, and then the loser gets the second seed by all accounts. I don't think there's much, unless that Canada-Finland game goes a way that we're not necessarily expecting. It doesn't, like you're saying, doesn't mean a whole lot in the end, because the group winner plays the third team from Group B, and the second place finisher faces the second place team from Pool B.
We
so
think right now will be either Germany or
right
Italy.
now that would be Italy or Germany as it stands. Japan could still move in, but they would require a regulation win and a Germany loss.
Germany can't
regulation
get any
loss
points.
in the last day of pool play. Right. So,
Italy probably maybe the surprise for people so far, in that they are sort of well in the conversation and doing well in Group B. I mean, I think there is no doubt that Sweden is a few steps ahead of everybody else in Group B. They're the team most excited about switching this group setup for the next Olympics. France is officially eliminated. I thought France played okay. I think at times they played really timid, but I also think that France came into this as we took second place in qualification and weren't even supposed to be here. And we host in 2030. So let's get everything we can out of this as a learning experience.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see tomorrow. Like you said, I mean, I don't see Japan upsetting Sweden. So it looks like it would be Germany is the 3rd seed, right? Italy as the 2 seed, and Sweden as the 1 seed. Is it the other? Yeah.
Right. As of now, right. So yeah, a lot to be decided before we talk to you next. But by next week's podcast, we will have all that decided and the semifinals done. So we'll be looking ahead to gold medal game, bronze medal game to be played a week from Thursday in Milan. I felt like it's been some pretty compelling games so far. I mean, not necessarily, there haven't been a lot of, between the US and Canada and their opponents, close games, but a lot of the other games have been, going down to the wire. I forget which game I was watching
Germany.
This morning. It was, I think it was the Japan-Italy game that ended up 3-2 on Monday morning and in favor of Italy. And it was, Japan had some chances toward the end, just, couldn't get them to go. But that's kind of indicative in that Group B that there's, those are teams that are kind of scrapping to get to the quarterfinals and just be part of that equation.
And I think we probably have to shout out Switzerland, right? Like their last two games against US and Canada ended up a little more lopsided than maybe was fair to them, because It was Saskia Maurer against Canada, and it was Andrea
Yeah.
Brantley against USA today. But their defense has been spectacular. It's a little hard to watch. I was saying, because people are like, oh, Switzerland's goaltending, and it's like, man, we have seen this before. They are very good with great goaltending. They are very good on defense, and they struggle to convert that to offense. And the big thing is that this is a team that has had Lara Stalder and Alina Mueller leading them, and that has been the case for 3-4 Olympics now, and there hasn't been anybody else
Nicole's right, yeah,
to step up for them. And there's only so much you can do when you have the only two people who can, have the stamina and have the vision and can go on rushes and recover if they turn it over and things like that. And that's the missing piece for Switzerland. But they had Canada 1-0 going into the third period. They had US 2-0 going into the third period today. Their goaltending continues to play outstanding. I mean, Andrea Brantley was reportedly the one player in Switzerland that had norovirus. So the fact that she played today and played lights out again. But I feel like there's a lot to learn if you're someone that's going to face US or Canada, from the way that the gap management, the way that they kept them to the outsides, some of the sort of angling, and it wasn't a coincidence that the US's goals early came when they finally got to the net. Because they weren't getting to the net front for a lot of it. And I think some of that was frustrating for both them and Canada. And I think importantly too is Switzerland did have way more shots today. They had as many shots in the first period as they had the whole game against Canada. But it's both heartening and fun to watch, and you get excited for them. But also, I feel like we have seen this song and dance from them before, and I know that there's frustration on their end in terms of Lars Stalder and Alina Mueller can't do it all, and they have yet to raise the level of development that the other forwards are playing at that level. Though I think Ivana Way has really made a name for herself internationally at this tournament. She's someone that stood out to me, 18s in 2024, and she's 20 now and committed to Northeastern for next year. So she is someone I think will be really fun and interesting to watch the development of between now and the next Olympics for them. But just kind of highlights what the, why Lara Stalder left and went back to try and grow things back at home in Switzerland. Like, the development just isn't, we're not getting more top tier talent. And that's not to say that there's not good players on the team, but there's a difference between the good players and the Lara Stalders and Alina Muellers of the universe. So I think shout out to them, because I think they've handled themselves really well. But and I think they've impressed a lot of people. I thought Saskia got lots of attention from people watching that Canada game. But I don't think that there is an opportunity for them to take that next step at this point, and that's hard and frustrating, I think.
All right, good stuff there on the Olympics. We're going to talk about NCAA hockey again when we come back from our last break. Last week we had number 1 against number 2. This week we've got number 2 against number 3. So another intriguing matchup happening there in the WCHA, plus all of those exciting permutations for ECAC hockey's finish. We're going to talk about that and more when we come back. Stay with us on the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Todd and Nicole here to wrap things up for this week with a look at, first, everything that can happen in ECAC hockey. Well, I don't know if we can go through everything that can happen in the ECAC, but we know there are 6 games happening Friday, 6 games happening Saturday, and then that's the end of the regular season. We'll know what the playoffs are going to look like. These teams host series this week: Princeton, Quinnipiac, Clarkson, Union RPI, and St. Lawrence. Obviously, we're going to be looking at Princeton being the team that is currently in first place, as having a chance to wrap that up, hosting Yale on Friday and Brown on Saturday. So not exactly a what you would call an easy finish, if there is such a thing in the ACAC at all. And then Quinnipiac, I'm looking at this again here, then gets... Is it Brown? No, wait. I wish I would have had this written down a little bit differently. Yeah, Brown on Friday and then Yale
those are the
Saturday.
two. That's
yes.
4 travel partner situations.
So those 2 series right there could be have a lot going on in them. So if you're going to pay attention to just a couple of games, those would probably be ones to keep an eye on going this weekend, right?
And, love that scheduling put us in that situation. Appreciate it that the top 4 teams are all playing each other. Yeah, Princeton sort of in the driver's seat, right? Like they have the 2-point lead and they're at home. But it's certainly not going to be easy. And I think for teams like Browning, they're looking to play spoiler and put themselves in a better position. So yeah, I don't know what to think. I don't have any great prognosticating sources here, but yeah, I think Princeton probably has the slight advantage just getting to be at home and having that lead.
There's also Clarkson hosting Colgate and then hosting Cornell. So so many things can be moving around in that picture there. Cornell and Clarkson right in there with Brown for the first round bye. So a lot going on around ECAC this weekend. Make sure you're checking in with our scoreboards on USCHO.com for the live results happening there and following the standings. All that will be updated. And of course, the NPI will be updated as it goes along. A lot of things left to be decided there. A lot to be decided in the WCHA still too. Wisconsin only with a 2-point lead over Ohio State, 5 points up on Minnesota. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Minnesota this week, Friday and Saturday in Columbus. This is a series that got heated the first time they met this season, and that still shows in their penalty totals for or averages for the season, both being in the top of the country there. So thinking back on that a little bit over the weekend when someone was asking about penalty minutes, I was like, yeah, these are the numbers, but they're thrown off by having pretty much everyone on the ice tossed at the end of one of those games in Minneapolis this season. I don't know how much that means anything as they're getting down to the penultimate week of the regular season in the WCHA, but it does kind of illustrate that there's not going to be any ground given by either one of these teams, even in a game that might start to get out of hand numbers wise, goals wise. There's a lot to be proven, and I think that's what we're going to see in both of these
I
matchups.
would say too, to throw maybe a little wrench in this as well, is that Minnesota is now on the verge of being passed in the MPI by Penn State. It's less than half a point separating them. So Ohio State's playing for points to win the WCHA, but Minnesota, I mean, it's just a different situation to be in the 4-5 game versus being the 3 seed. So and Penn State is just in the position that they're not moving or losing much, having already clinched their conference. So yeah, and they're not going to lose point. Like the NPI is built that they can't lose points for playing teams out of the rankings and things like that. So I think there is maybe even more on the line. There's going to be, there's no love lost between those two teams. Probably more so even, I think there's probably more, like grudging respect between Wisconsin and Ohio State. And I feel like there's a little more bad blood between Minnesota and Ohio State. But yeah, there's a lot of pride on the line, especially after the way that last series ended. But Minnesota really is in a more precarious position looking towards their own postseason, and that adds, I think, an extra wrinkle to it as well.
Yes, it certainly does. So that's going to be a something to really pay attention to this week. And can Ohio State do to Minnesota what they did to Wisconsin and coming out and establishing the tone and playing their style right away this time in their own building, and not letting Minnesota get established. That's going to be another thing to watch for this week. A lot to watch for this week as we're looking around the country, but I want to make sure we get, you had mentioned the NEWHA finish of the season earlier. just making sure I get this right. It is Saint Anselm and Assumption this week playing a home and home series. So Saint Anselm, wait, I had the standings here. No, I don't. Where did they go? Let me find it again. Find out which page. Saint Anselm up by 8 points over Franklin Pierce. And then Saint Anselm is up by 4 points over Assumption. So big changes could happen this weekend. And we are here for all of the chaos happening over the last 2 weeks of their regular season, because then it's St. Anselm, Franklin Pierce.
And Franklin Pierce has, 1 in 27 St. Michael's this weekend. So they're in a position to earn their complete points in what I would think is an easier manner than St. Anselm and Assumption playing each other. Yes, I'm
not taking anything for granted anymore in NEWHA, because I've been down that road a few times.
So there's that. I will say Assumption, I'm pretty sure Assumption's games are free to watch, and I'll have those links over at Victory Press, but the game at Assumption for sure will be for free. So that's something to look out for if you want to pay attention there. But yeah, I love that the three teams, that it's all so close. And like arguably, if they all beat up on each other, like Stonehill is looking pretty good to move up as well. Not take the lead, but they could put themselves up in second place too. So yeah, it's I just think it's fun. No offense to Penn State, but it's boring that they've had wrapped up for so long. Like the AJ, it's like, man, and then they draw out their tournament for so long. So it's fun that all of this is coming down to the last weekend. Week or two, depending on what's going on with per conference. It's compelling, and it makes for a fun close to the regular season.
Yep, that Atlantic Hockey finish is this week as well. Delaware is already done with conference games. They are locked into the 7th seed in the playoffs. Penn State is locked into the number 1 seed. Mercyhurst is going to be number 2. Then it gets a little trickier with those last 4 teams in the middle there. RIT, Syracuse, Lindenwood, Robert Morris. RIT has to go to Penn State this week. Syracuse is at Mercyhurst, Lindenwood at Robert Morris. So Syracuse has a chance, is at 1 point behind RIT to, if they can get something out of a series at Mercyhurst, even if it's a couple overtime results, they have a chance to leapfrog RIT for 3rd place in the conference. And every seed matters, I think, in that conference when we're dealing with I believe the first round, the opening round is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's the 7th seed against the 6th seed, winner to play the 3rd seed. Days later, right? And that happening at the 3rd seed. So there's some interesting things happening in Atlantic Hockey this season with the
7 teams.
Playoff format.
We like a very unusual bracket over here at NC Hockey. Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's cool though that Lindenwood has sort of been a perpetual bottom of the conference team. So Lindenwood is the only one of those teams in the middle there that's playing someone ranked below them. So like if they can take care of business this weekend, they put themselves in a really great position. And so I think it's just good to see, even in this conference that's sort of been decided and that Penn State has sort of ruled over pretty well over the last couple of years. We're seeing growth in some of these programs and seeing them take steps forward. And I think that's just really important for them to continue to recruit and grow and get better. You have to be producing results to get people to want to come there, So I think it's a good step forward. And we're looking at these teams that are all kind of around 500 in conference play, which is doing pretty well.
Right. A game on Sunday that I wanted to mention: Boston College at number 5 Northeastern. Again, at in quotation marks there, because that game is happening at Bentley Arena on Sunday. Northeastern 7-0-1 in its last 8 games, plays at Boston University on Friday. I think Northeastern, the more it can continue that run going into the playoffs, the better its chances are looking, in solidifying that number 5 in the NPI. And it seems like a long shot, but maybe there's a chance that there's a stumble by someone ahead in the top 4 and a chance to move into that spot. But for sure, to avoid that first round game, staying in the number 5 spot in the NPI is big for Northeastern, and they can't really afford, very many
No, but
stumbles.
they
on the
haven't
stretch.
had much, and again, that's a team we weren't talking about at the beginning of the
Right.
year as someone A, to win their conference, or B, to earn like a top seed in the NCAA.
To be a win
Yeah,
away from a
yeah.
Frozen Four when it gets
So
to
I
that point.
think,
Right. Yeah.
I think everything they've been doing has just been, they've done such a great job of sort of taking that momentum and rolling and building on what they've already had. And when they have stumbled, they've responded well, and they've continued to do really great in conference, which is important. And I think, I just, that's a team that I think should be scary for everyone else, just because of what they've built from the beginning. And while we've seen, like, we talk about the chaos of the ECAC, and teams, sort of shuffling and moving and losing points, like, Northeastern's been pretty steadily chugging along and just doing what they need to do and taking care of business. And that is, that puts them in a pretty good position to face whatever adversity comes next, right? And I just think they're a team that, because of what they've built, game after game after game, like, would make me choose them in most sort of toss-ups, right? Because I think they've pulled out the wins. They're very good at coming from behind or scoring those late goals that put them in a good position. They're very good in overtime, and they have a very good goaltender. So they are primed to do some teams dirty as we head into the postseason. And I think the fact that they haven't really stumbled, that they haven't really veered from this course, and that, like, even when nobody else was talking about them, they believed in what they were doing and have just gone out and sort of quietly proved it all season long, says a lot about them, and I think makes them one of the scarier teams heading towards March.
And I'll continue to say it, for the last 2 months, not having a home ice, even for, not for games, but for where you're going for practice, not being on campus, not doing the short walk or the short drive to your locker room. Having to change that has been a lot, and I'm sure it will be over the next full season.
That puts them in a good spot when we come to postseason, and you might have to travel places and play in weird spots and be, 3 buildings away from the ice. It's interesting. The Bentley part is interesting. Is I think this is their first games, or they've played at other people's ice, but it's been ice that they're used to. But Bentley doesn't have a women's team, right? Like, they don't have so I'm curious how familiar,
right?
Or at least they don't have a D1 women's team.
I know the Northeastern men have played at Bentley Arena, so this is something they've used as a school before, but I don't know that the women's team.
I mean, I know that they don't have a D1
before,
team,
so.
obviously. I just that's just an interesting sort of wrinkle to this too, in terms of like playing at Wally B. That's not new to them, but this is a whole new situation. So that puts an extra sort of asterisk on what they've been able to accomplish this year, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's been a lot to cover here this week. As we get into the middle part of February, and then continuing on after that, it'll feel like a lot more. But with the Olympics going on too, it's just there is a lot of really interesting stuff happening, and we appreciate everyone coming along for the ride with us, and we will make sure to try and keep our ears to the ground for all of the important information that's happening around NCAA women's hockey. So, unless, Nicole, you have anything else to add, that's going to wrap it up for this week.
It's going to be really busy until we finish the Olympics, and then it will be busy in postseason, but not quite as overwhelming as what we're doing right now. Very exciting, lots of fun, but oh my goodness. So
check everything out on USCHO.com and on Victory Press with Nicole's great stuff there, and make sure to join us again here next week for another edition of the PodKaz. I'm Todd. That's Nicole. Thanks for joining us.